Here is an album that I got after I'd already been playing music for a while. You can see right here that Mark O'Connor was both the national fiddle champion and the national guitar champion in the year 1975. So then I go reading through the liner notes and I discover that, he was only 13 years old when that happened. Through the help of YouTube, we can get further discouraged by realizing that Ricky Skaggs performed with Lester Flatt and Earl Scruggs when he was only 7 years old. Add to that our friend Sonny Osborne played and recorded with Bill Monroe and his Bluegrass Boys when he was only 14 years old. The conclusion that we can draw from this is that, yes, some people are just born with some music talent. If you dare to compare yourself to such phenoms, you'll easily get frustrated, thinking, why don't I just get it? Here's the talent meter that these music icons possessed, basically off the charts. And here's the talent meter according to one of my early music instructors that I inherently possessed. Given that as a beginning, I still managed to become a full-time professional musician, and I've always loved music, and so I'd like to share what I did to kind of overcome these deficiencies, should you view yourself as being in the same boat. While studying may not raise your IQ, there's no denying that it will make you smarter. It's similar with music. Although you're born with a certain amount of talent, you can become a better musician through proper study and practice. The average person learning to play an instrument probably had an average amount of talent when they started, and so your talent meter probably looked something like this when you began. Two other elements factor into whether you'll get good at playing music beyond your natural talent. The first being the desire or passion that you have to want to learn to play, and the second is the amount of effort that you're willing to put in. So with those three elements together, my combined music meter would look like this. Not much talent, quite a bit of desire, and a whole lot of effort. The only reason my desire and effort needles aren't all the way to the right is that I personally know some musicians who are much more passionate about their instrument and put in a lot more effort than I have over the years. And I indeed feel myself fortunate to have played alongside many of these great musicians. To overcome any lack of talent, you'll have to focus on the two elements that go into music talent. The first being rhythm, and the second being the ability to discern between different pitches of notes. If we watch what a baby does the first time he or she pulls himself up and is listening to music, some will instantly make movements that are in time with the music. They have rhythm. Some aren't moved by music at all, and right there is an inherent difference in the ability to feel rhythm. I was made aware of my deficiency in the area of rhythm after I was already a performing professional musician. We were in the recording studio and listening to a playback, and we noticed that it seemed like one of the instruments was off, and then all of a sudden I noticed that everybody was looking at me. So I had to realize that there was work that needed to be done in this area, and I'll show you one of the things I did to work on my timing. So back in the day, we used this traditional metronome that all the cool cats used. Certainly keeps time for you. But nowadays, most of you will probably have a digital app that might look something like this. And you can see that I've put it at 60 beats per minute, and I have an accent on beats 1 and 3. So you can do this exercise without even pulling out an instrument. It's just an exercise in rhythm. You then can apply it to your instrument. So here's 60 beats per minute. 3, 4. Here's a whole note. 2, 3, 4. 2, 3, 4. We switch to half note. 2, 3, 4. 2, 3, 4. Quarter notes. Right on the beat. Now we split the beat in half with eighth note. Then 4 per beat. There's a saying that the metronome doesn't lie. That simply means that you need to put in the work until you can do an exercise like that. Some people have trouble doing the whole notes because they don't have the patience at slow tempos to let the note last the full value. You'll notice when you're right on top of the beat that your hand and the emphasis on the metronome just seem to disappear and become one. That's what you're shooting for. To convince students that they can hear pitches, I play this for them on their first lesson. Then I ask them what comes next, and invariably students of all ages sing doo-da, doo-da, and they're right on the pitch. So this shows that they have an inherent ability to hear the difference in pitches. In traditional music studying, this is referred to as ear training. So ear training for folk musicians is to play a common folk song and see if you can hear what the next note should be. And it could be that you're singing them to yourself and then you get them to come out on your instrument. One thing that's beyond our control is the environment that we grew up in musically. When researching the backgrounds of my music heroes, it turned out nearly all of them grew up in music families. Their siblings, their parents played, or they went to church on Sunday. They all sang in the choir. So they had a lot of music in their background. We can't change that. I grew up with no music in the family. But knowing that you can work to improve your rhythm and your sense of being able to hear notes is greatly helpful in your overall musicianship. Let's now take a look at how the passion you have for your instrument will affect how well you learn to play. Not everyone takes up an instrument for the same reason. The why behind the desire to play an instrument often is telling as to how successful you'll be in learning it. As an example, one of the first guitar students I ever had, when he came into his first lesson, I said, "Well, who are you into as far as guitar players go?" And his immediate answer was Ace Frehley, the guitar player for Kiss. And when I asked him why, he said, "Well, gosh, he comes out and the lights are down low and there's all this fog on stage." And I go, "Okay, well, what about his playing guitar?" "Oh yeah, he jumps around and he's got all this makeup on and he's really cool." So everything that he was into passionately had nothing to do with actually playing the instrument. Some examples of positive desire that led to success among my students include a student who had inherited her grandfather's mandolin, and she wanted to keep that legacy going. Another said, "I grew up listening to banjo and I've always been fascinated by that sound." Your passion for an instrument doesn't have to be solely about playing the instrument. You'll want to dig into the history of any instrument that you get interested in and research who some of the great players of that instrument are. If you're a mandolin player, it all starts in bluegrass mandolin with this fellow. Displaying the passion you have for your instrument is a fun way to stay engaged during those times when your practicing may be a little frustrating. So be sure all your friends know what your instrument is so they can buy you quality gifts for each special occasion. And of course we got your coffee mug. Refrigerator magnets are always good. And if you need to keep time, instead of the metronome, just get yourself a banjo clock. So revisiting just why you wanted to learn to play music in the first place is a good idea from time to time to recharge your passion for learning. This trophy is for you. Congratulations, you've made it this far in the video. It's just the nature of YouTube videos that, well, we drift from one to the other without fully watching the whole thing. Which is unfortunate in this video because I'm about to share with you the things that I think are really important that will help you get the most bang for your buck as you move forward. It goes without saying that practice will help you get better, but there's practice and then there's focused practice. And in focused practice, you will get much better quicker. Focused practice isn't just playing songs, especially if you're making the same mistakes over and over. For any instrument, there are elements of technique that must be mastered before moving on to higher levels. I'm amazed that I've never met anyone that noticed the first thing that I noticed when I began working out of Earl Scruggs' book many years ago. And that is that he properly begins with the techniques that you need to know to become a banjo player. So here, he's focusing on showing you how to do slides. And at the very end over here, he then says, well, do that 1,000 times. So practice it 1,000 times and you will have truly mastered the slide. So then you move on. Don't just play it 2 or 3 times and move on. Learning things in a logical order is key to continually progress. The purpose of seeking a qualified instructor is to have him or her help you maintain your step-by-step focus. In other words, they should have a program to help you maintain your pace of learning. If you go to an instructor and the first thing they say is, well, what song do you want to learn? Well, I would find another instructor. They should have an idea of where they want to take you based on your skills that you come in with. Just a quick aside here for those of you that have tried to learn out of this book, this is not an instruction method. He starts with some basic things like the slides and the left-hand moves, but quickly goes from a very easy song, Cripple Creek, to boom, 2 pages later, a song in a completely different key with different rolls playing all over the neck. That will not lead to the step-by-step progress you seek. All of us lead busy lives and we only have so much time to practice, but I can personally attest that the times that I've maintained focused practice, my progress has gone up much quicker than when I just hang out and play songs. Don't get me wrong, playing songs is an important part of your growth. Go out and play at jam sessions, pick with your friends, but when you sit down to practice, make sure you maintain focus. Here are the elements that I like to include in a complete practice session. It's important to warm up your hands to get them ready to do what they need to do. If your hands aren't ready for something, then you'll just be practicing mistakes and get stuck in a rut. Starting your session with a few warm-up exercises will get you ready to play more challenging things much more quickly than should you just dive into a song. Next, have some drills to where you warm up with scales and/or arpeggios, finding different chord positions. It seems like those things are embedded into your songs, but pulling them out separately will give you a set of notes that will apply to any song that you work on from that point on. Theoretically, we're now warmed up, so play an easy tune or two, something that you can really play perfectly. Now's the time that you would work on new material, making sure that anything that you seem to be stumbling on, you pull it out, isolate it, work in small pieces, and then start putting bigger pieces together. When first learning new material, be sure to play things slowly and with precise timing and good tone. Once you're about 2/3 of the way into your practice session, challenge yourself with one of your more difficult songs. See how you're doing. Are you making progress? It's important to wind down your practice session with a couple of easy things, maybe a short song that you know you can play well, so that you always are left with the feeling like, hey, I can really do this. So there you have it. Take the talent you were given, combine that with full-blown passion and maximized effort, and your music meter should look like this.